Hi, I'm Kerwin and welcome to a new season of The Agenda. Thank you for joining us yet again for another great season of Delaware politics and legislation, keeping you up to date of what's going on in the state down in Dover, also in Washington. And speaking of Washington, this year, our first guest of the season is none other than Senator Tom Carper.
Hi, how are you, Kerwin?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you for coming onto the agenda for the first time. This is your first time joining us.
You have to pay.
That's right.
So why not do it?
We had some trouble with the envelope before, but it got to you this time. So
how long have you been doing this?
Not long enough, some people tell me.
That's
some
good.
people tell me I got to stay at it. But this is our second season.
People ask me how long I've been married to Martha. I say, not long enough.
Not long enough.
That's a good line. Guys, remember that, guys. When you try and remember how long you've been married to your spouse, not long enough.
Not long enough, so you don't have to get stuck with the dates. You always have good little ideas for me. Every time I see you, there's something good that you can let us know.
We're talking about working out earlier.
That's right.
And starting our day with a great workout at the YMCA. Love the YMCA.
Central Y,
Love
great
it.
place.
Yeah.
Well, sir, it has not been boring over the summer in the United States and throughout our state. And I want to get right into it,
Sure.
if you don't mind. The first thing that is really affecting people, and I want to be honest, it's affecting me, it's affecting this city, is inflation, right? And there has been recent legislation that has been passed to help, some say ease, or deal with this situation. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
And one of the prime pushers of inflation is energy costs, especially what people are paying at the pump. And the income statements were just released by the major oil companies a couple of days ago, and they reported like tens of billions of profit, and which is, I think, outrageous. And I think we're taking some steps to try to rein that in. When there's a BP service station very close to our house, I drive by it every day, and the price of gasoline there almost reached $5 about 2-3 months ago, and it's been steadily dropping. It's now under $4. So we're heading in the right direction. It's just taken a while. I think that's a prime pusher of the cost of living. A second pusher is we rely too much on semiconductors and chips for almost everything, cars, electronics, everything, and we're way too reliant on some parts of the world where they jack up the prices on us. We just passed legislation in the Senate just last week it's designed to return that industry where it actually started, return it here and provide a lot of jobs, but also bring down the cost a lot.
So, I mean, for me, I'm a parent, 3 kids.
How old are your kids?
12, 13, and 14.
Boy, girl, boy?
2 boys and a girl.
Okay.
And it's never a dull moment, okay?
Sure. We have 3 boys.
3 boys, that's right.
There used to be a TV show called My 3 Sons.
Right.
And I used to wonder when I was a kid, I used to wonder, what would it be like to have 3 sons? And you know what it is? Great.
It's great.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's never boring though, is it?
Yeah, one of them is my stepson from my first marriage. His parents are deceased. And he and his wife have 4 kids. They live in Michigan. They call my wife bonus grandmother. Isn't that nice? Bonus grandmother.
Last week I bought dinner for my family. It was 2 pizzas and I think it was chicken wings. And it was $71.
You're kidding. God, where'd you eat?
$71 for 2 pizzas.
The green room? Actually, the green room's closed.
But it's going to show that inflation is affecting everyone here in our community, and it's also affecting the small business. And I'm looking at this legislation, and is there going to be relief in sight?
Oh yeah, I think this is a shared responsibility. It's not just the president's responsibility to try to manage the economy and inflation. It's not just the role of the Congress. It's a shared responsibility. And the last part of this is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve. I remember, 30 years ago when cost inflation, the rate of inflation was like 20-some%. And Paul Volcker became the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And he hiked up, the Federal Reserve hiked up interest rates. And in order to bring it down to tame inflation, they did. And it took a while, a number of months, but they finally brought it down to something more reasonable, and we've kept it there for a long, long time. The one out of those 3, executive branch president, legislative branch Congress, the Federal Reserve, The Federal Reserve has been AWOL. I'm an old Navy guy, AWOL, absent without leave. And they have been just not involved in helping to tame inflation. They have a major, maybe the major role in taming inflation. Finally, thank God, Jay Powell's the fellow who's now the chairman of the Federal Reserve. They've gotten involved. They have every month for the last several months raised interest rates by a fairly significant amount. That's going to do probably more than anything the Congress or the president could do. And I think we got to head in the right direction, especially with respect to energy costs.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when the average constituent sees that interest rates are raising and they look at their credit card statements and they're possible going out and trying to get first-time mortgages and things like that, and they're seeing that, well, this wasn't what it was last year, the only way to slow down things sometimes is to increase the interest rates. And I think a lot of constituents don't understand that. So by the Fed doing that, that's what they're attempting to do, correct?
The other thing that's been pushing up the rate of inflation is we've been deficit spending in order to get out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And when we fell into the pandemic and we had unemployment, we went from about 3.5% to like 20%. Mm-hmm. And we used the federal government to pump things up, to get people back to work, to help make sure that businesses didn't collapse. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is now pulled back on that. And the Federal Reserve is coming in and beginning to raise interest rates. And we're leaning on like the oil companies to say, what you're charging is outrageous. Mm-hmm. I think all of it's coming together in a good way, and we just have that. We can't give up. We just got to keep it up. I like to say, find out what works, do more of that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022.
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act does about 3 or 4 big things. One, it helps tame inflation by not just spending. More deficit spending. It actually helps raise a fair amount of money, but we raise that money and we use it to pay down the deficit. Mm-hmm. We pay down the federal deficit. Gosh, for as long as I can remember, we've heard the IRS, the commissioners of IRS who run the IRS say, they don't have enough people to collect the taxes they owed. They don't have the kind of technology to be able to collect the taxes they owed. And while we do a fair number of audits on mid and lower income people. We don't do a whole lot on upper income people. We don't do a whole lot on companies that make a lot of money. So what the commissioners of the IRS, I don't care if you have a Republican president, Democrat, they've all said for years, decades, give us the resources we need so we can actually make sure people are paying their fair share of taxes. Mm-hmm. And that will reduce the deficit, and that will actually help tame inflation. That's one of the things.
It just scares me, honestly, when I hear that we're going to supercharge the IRS and let them go out and we're going to give them all types of equipment so they can collect more taxes.
Actually, the folks, the irony of it is, folks who don't have a lot, mm-hmm. And who use the Earned Income Tax Credit, they get audited a lot.
Right.
They get audited a lot. Folks who make a whole lot and have complex tax returns, they don't get audited that much. Mm-hmm. And we need to better ensure, it's pretty simple. If you're making a lot of money, you're very successful, we want you to pay your fair share.
Yeah.
And rather than just simply raise interest or raise tax rates, let's make it sure everybody's paying their fair share. And that's a big part. There's another thing that we do with the legislation. The biggest challenge we face on this planet, it's hot in here. Yeah. It's hot outside. And this week, we're going to see temperatures in over 100. Mm-hmm. Over 100, we're going to see continued drought.
Horrible floods in Kentucky.
Kentucky, yeah, and it's not just Kentucky. We, in England, 2 weeks ago, England, they don't have air conditioning because it's never that hot. They have 105 degrees. They were having the bicycle race of the Tour de France, and it was so hot that the pavement that they were riding the Tour de France on melted. And this is going on in real time, not just here, it's around the world. So there's a big piece in our legislation that says, let's address climate change. Do it in a way that reduces carbon emissions, because carbon emissions that are warming up the planet. And let's reduce carbon emissions from our cars, trucks, and vans, our mobile sources, from power plants to create electricity, burn like coal, maybe natural gas to create electricity. And the other thing is when we do manufacturing operations, think like cement plants, steel mills, we put up a lot of carbon dioxide emissions into the air. As it turns out, we have the technology to actually capture carbon dioxide emissions and put them way under the Earth's surface. Mm-hmm. We have the ability to capture them and put them in the soil that fertilizes the soil, makes soil more fertile, farmers are more productive, more profitable. So there's a lot of ways to do this. We can build more vehicles that don't put out any carbon dioxide and simply could run off of hydrogen, could run off of electricity. And we can build those cars with that technology right here in this country. So those are some of the pieces of the legislation that we're dealing with.
And how hard was it? I read some online and some with the local news here dealing with, again, with the bipartisan, trying to get things to work together, the bipartisan nature of the Senate, and the holdup from Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin in regards to getting this legislation passed. What are you doing as a local legislator, or our U.S. legislation, to ensure that we're all getting along there and legislation is moving forward?
Yeah, it's good you should ask that. I believe that the bipartisan solutions are lasting solutions. I was a treasurer of Delaware, worked very closely with Pete DuPont. I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican. Worked very closely with him for 6 years to help get the state back on the right footing, get the worst credit rating in the country to a strong AA, and eventually when I was governor, a AAA credit rating. I'm one that believes that if things are worth having, they're worth paying for. I believe in helping people. I think the best way you can help people is make sure they can help themselves. I think it was Gandhi who used to say this. He used to say, give a person a fish, you feed them for a day, teach a person to fish, they can feed themselves and their families for a lifetime. I'm a big believer in teaching fish so people to be able to look out for themselves. I have the privilege of chairing a committee called Environment and Public Works. We not only deal with clean water, clean air, climate change, we also deal with roads, highways, bridges, we deal with water systems, drinking water, wastewater sanitation, flood control. The infrastructure bill, big infrastructure bill the president signed last December, biggest infrastructure bill in the history of the country, came out of my committee. And it came out of my committee unanimously. 20 to zip. We have 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. We just passed last week legislation dealing with water resources development. Something called the Army Corps of Engineers. People think of the Army, they think of people in helmets and guerrilla jungle fighting and stuff. But the Army Corps of Engineers is designed to help make sure, a couple examples for Delaware, that our beaches, when we have nor'easters, we have hurricanes, and the dune systems and all of our beaches in southern Delaware, want to make sure that they're restored. And that it's a number 2 source of income. It's number 2 industry in our state is tourism. Beaches are a big part of that. So the Army Corps of Engineers helps make sure that we have a strong and vibrant tourism industry. And the other thing that they do is make sure that the ships are able to get in and out of not just the port of Wilmington, which is the top banana port in America, but also to make sure that ships can come in and out of Delaware Bay, Delaware River, go into Philadelphia, go into New Jersey. Most of the goods and services, most of the goods that we move around the world go by ships. Most people think, they go by rail, or they go by airplane. They go by ships. I think it's like over 80%, maybe 90% of the movement, and it goes by ships. The Army Corps of Engineers, their job is to make sure those ships can come in and out of harbors, they come in and out of ports, and they can make it to the open ocean and deliver stuff that we're trying to sell to the world and bring others into the world. That legislation, we passed it last week. Major legislation, touches every state. We passed with 1 dissenting vote. One dissenting was like 99 to 1. And so what we do is lead by example. There's a woman named Shelley Capito, who is a Republican from West Virginia, where I was born. And she's a senior Republican on our Environmental Public Works Committee. I'm a senior Democrat. We have 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. She and I meet every Thursday. We meet, either in person or on the phone if she's driving back to West Virginia, just to talk about our agenda, how we're working together, what she would like to do. If we have any differences, talk them out. We have one of her top staff, my top staff person, and it's just really good communication, trying to treat other people the way we want to be treated. And that leadership, Joe Biden used to say, all politics is personal. All politics is personal. And I think she knows that I love West Virginia. That's where I was born. That's where my family's born. That I care about her state. I want to make sure that West Virginia's successful. I want to make sure that we're successful. And it's a beautiful relationship. And the rest of the Congress, the rest of the Senate sees the way we work, and they say, maybe we should do more of that.
Yeah.
Because it works.
But it's great when you have 2 people that are amenable to listening to both sides. But that always doesn't seem like that's the case in the Senate. It seems like there's other agendas that are being served, not necessarily to those that are better for you and for people in the community.
As you know, the nature of the media is to focus on dissent, disagreement, that kind of thing, accusations. if like Shelley Capito, Senator Capito, and I can have the best relationship in the world, pass all these bills by unanimously, and as we do, and it doesn't get much reporting. If you were like to bob me up beside the head, I would lead the news every night. So I'm a Navy guy, 20-some years. I believe I was taught as a midshipman, leadership by example. We lead by example. It's not what we say. It's not it's what we do. And here's the kind of example that we set for others. I've always tried to lead by example. And fortunately, I have a good partner in Shelley Capito, whose father was a Republican, whose father was the governor of West Virginia when I was a little boy. I was first born there, and now his daughter is served, and I served together in the United States Senate. Small world.
Let DART do the driving. DART First State provides transportation that is clean, safe, reliable, and affordable. Plan your trip and get real-time bus information with the free DART Transit app. Scan your phone to pay your fare with the free DART Pass app. So what are you waiting for? Try transit today. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
Since we're talking about the world, let's not forget about the Ukraine, right? We're still a very difficult place there. There's still lives that are being lost, and the United States is working very hard to find a diplomatic solution. What's the current temperature there? How are things going?
Yeah, I think the key for us is not to stop, not to give up Ukraine. I wear this lapel pin every day. I received it at the Ukrainian embassy right when the Russians first invaded the Ukraine. I think the idea of us sort of like standing aside, and allowing Russia to do this, to come in and say, we're going to take this much of the Ukraine, and to hell with you guys. That would have been awful. And God bless Joe Biden for rallying the free world, the free nations of the world, to rise in opposition to what Russia's done and to support the Ukraine. These are some of the bravest people on the planet. To fight like they did against overwhelming odds. We're providing them a lot of resources, not just food and that sort of thing, but also, as you know, a lot of military assistance, and we'll continue to do that. One little bright spot is Ukraine is a huge producer. Many people don't even know what to do in Ukraine. It's a big ag economy. Not many people think Delaware is a big ag economy. We raise 300 chickens for every person here. We raise huge amount of soybeans, huge amount of corn to feed the chickens and so forth. Well, they raise a lot. They create a lot of wheat and other corn and other stuff in the Ukraine that's needed around the world to feed the world. That's one of the things that's pushed up the price of stuff. The Putin's invasion of the Ukraine has really impeded the ability of the Ukraine to export the food to feed the world. And frankly, it's impeded the ability of the Russians to export. But now they worked out a deal, so like the first ship, I think the first ship has left the Ukraine carrying a whole lot of foodstuffs to, again, do what the Ukraine does very well, and that's to feed the world. Hopefully we can build on that. But I'll say this, there's been a lot in the news of late about Speaker Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan.
Yes.
And when I was in the Navy, we used to fly missions in the South China Sea, about 500 feet off the water, 12-hour missions. Looking for Soviet submarines, doing all kinds of things, looking for infiltrator trawlers trying to get in and to invade Vietnam. But we used to fly missions out of Taiwan. Lovely people, wonderful people, democratic people. And they're our ally, and we're going to stick by them. And the idea that somehow the Chinese are going to come in and take over, the best signal, or the worst signal we could give to the Chinese in terms of coming in and taking over Taiwan would be for us to say to Putin, "Oh, you do what you want with Ukraine, or
right.
just we'll wash our hands of that. That'd be a big mistake." And we're not interested in a war with China. We are interested in making sure that a free nation, democratic nation like Taiwan gets to continue to be that.
Yeah, and what do you think about China's response to Pelosi's visit with firing missiles into shipping channels and I guess sanctioning her family and sending sanctions towards her and her family that were reported earlier, I believe yesterday?
Yeah.
What is your response to that?
Joe Biden's really good at diplomacy. He chaired the Foreign Relations Committee. He knows most of the world leaders. He knows President Xi, pretty well. And he knows Putin. Probably spent more time with Putin than any other other leader has. And on the heels of what Speaker Pelosi was doing, you got President Joe Biden on the phone with Xi. I think they talked, I don't know, for hours, or earlier this week, about her visit. We're sitting about 200 yards from a place where my wife and I had dinner with a Soviet ambassador the Russian ambassador to the U.S. who was here visiting Delaware. And my wife and I had dinner with the Russian ambassador and his wife right here in Wilmington a couple of months ago. And the issue of Taiwan came up. And I just said to the ambassador, I said, look, when I was a younger man, naval flight officer, Southeast Asia, I flew a lot of missions in and out of Taiwan. Know the Taiwanese people, like the Taiwanese people. They are free people. Let's leave them alike. Maintain the status quo. We're not going to do anything to impede China on this, but to let the Taiwanese people live as a free nation, and we'll figure out how to get along. The ambassador was not real happy to hear that.
But it needed to be said.
But I like that. It needed to be said.
It needed to be said.
Thank you.
So when we're talking about things that need to be said, we're also talking about gun control here in the United States. And we've had a horrible events over the spring and summer months, talking about Uvalde, Texas, that has stemmed, I guess, new legislation in regards to gun reform, okay? How hard was it to get that passed, and do you see that as truly effective gun control?
Yeah. We actually ended up doing a two-part bill, and I'll mention about the second part, which deals with mental health, young people in mental health, and kind of challenges that they're facing, in part because of the pandemic. I mentioned earlier that my sister and I grew up in West Virginia. My grandfather was a big hunter, fisherman. My dad, big hunter and fisherman. The only thing the Carper family was known for in West Virginia 100 some years ago was the Carper rifle. That was it, and it was a collector's item. When I was a little boy, I used to go hunt and fish with my grandfather and my dad. And as a little kid, as a teenager and a young man, my dad was a gun collector. And he would actually buy and sell guns the last 10, 20 years of his life. And he would always say that, he said, Tom, he said, we just have to use, with respect to guns, buying and selling guns, use some common sense. You want to make sure we do background checks so that people that are mentally ill or have a bent toward violence, that they're not going to be able to get their hands on guns. He said the idea of allowing kids to have weapons that are assault weapons, that makes no sense, especially without any kind of background check. He used to talk to me about bullets that could pierce metal. And he said, armor-piercing bullets, you don't need those to hunt deer or rabbits or anything like that, and there's no useful purpose for them. My dad was a big common sense guy. First, when I was a little boy, not a little boy, I was 12, I ended up with 2 paper routes. Later on, we were growing up in Virginia. I had 2 paper routes. First thing I bought with my money from my paper route was a BB gun. And I probably killed more birds, I shouldn't say that. As a 12-year-old kid in Virginia, and you could shake a stick at, I'm not proud of that. But I still have one of my proudest possessions is the shotgun my grandfather gave me before he died. And I believe in the Second Degree Amendment. I think I also believe in common sense. And I don't know how many times we have to go through this and see people lose their kids and their grandchildren and so forth, and these tragedies one after the other. The legislation that we've passed makes a move to address that. Doesn't solve it, but it makes a move. It strengthens background checks. These red flag laws that say if somebody is dangerous and threatening and so forth, we want to make sure that we impede their ability to get their hands on a gun and do violence. But the real thing, the real plus in the bill that not many people are focused on is youth mental health.
Right.
And we've got so many kids that are growing up in tough situations, tough homes. One parent, no parents in many cases, raising themselves, and not unloved and so forth. What we did when I was governor, we said we created something called the Family Services Cabinet Council, 7 departments of state government that focused on families. And we said, rather than being stovepipes, all going different ways, we're going to unite together on a common agenda. For example, recruiting 10,000 mentors. For example, making sure that every child who's eligible for Head Start is actually funded by the state. They have Head Start. A huge focus on early childhood, a huge focus on making sure that people have access to contraception so we don't end up with young people especially getting pregnant and having to have more abortions. We did all kinds of things like that. And that's, Delaware's still doing that. And it's like what we do in Delaware with, we call them, in our school, we have them in our high school, wellness centers. When I was governor, we put a public school nurse in every public school, over 200. We put a wellness center in every high school. And now the state of Delaware is putting a wellness center in the elementary schools as well. And that is, the idea there is to help address the mental health challenges that the young people face. And it's the world that we live in. We can do nothing about it, or we can address it. We're addressing it in Delaware, and the rest of the country is going to learn from us.
Well, hopefully, some people fear that legislation was something that started off really, really good, and then I guess not being able to work together in the Senate and down in the House, that we were only left with mental health. That was the only thing that really came from that legislation.
Actually, there's a few more pieces that came, and I don't know that we have time.
We do.
Today to go into all of them. The idea, and I may be getting this wrong, but where we ended up agreeing was with respect to background checks. People under the age of 21. And should we toughen the background checks for somebody under the age of 21, especially to have access to assault weapons? We did that. We did a number of things. I don't have at the tip of my tongue all of the provisions. But did we do enough? No. Did we get started? We got started. And the nice thing about it was John Cornyn from Texas, Senator Republican from Texas. He and I were scheduled to have a hearing the day of the murders, the massacre in his state in Texas. And we had to cancel our hearing that day because of the hearing. And I reached out to him. And I said, it's important, John. I said, we mourn for your constituents, the loss of life there. But it's important that we do something about that, but it's also important that we do something to improve access to mental health care. The other, right now, under current Medicaid, states are eligible, school districts are eligible to use Medicaid to provide for mental health services in their schools, where the kids are. A lot of schools don't know how to access the Medicaid help. We address that, which is I think a great thing to do. And also, we want to make sure that schools do, and other states do what we're doing with respect to our wellness centers, and that they know how to get access to federal money to get those in place. I'm a big believer in not just addressing the symptoms of problems, address the root causes.
Right.
What are the root causes of the challenges we face, including in this round?
Well, it's that leadership that has always made me feel comfortable that you're down there in Washington.
Thank you.
It was that leadership that always made me feel comfortable that you were running the state. And it was that leadership that just made me feel comfortable that you're there. And not a lot of people, not everyone in the United States can say that their senator is someone that they trust, but I can honestly say that that's the case. So thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that.
Unfortunately, sir, we are out of time, but I am so happy that you came here to the agenda.
Thank you so much.
And
people say to me all the time, I go back and forth on the train with Lisa and Chris, say to me all the time, I wouldn't want your job for all the tea in China. And like I say, when better to be able to serve people of Delaware, be involved in these issues of life and death, whether we're not going to have a planet in the future. What an honor, what a privilege to serve.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for joining us on The Agenda, and we look forward to seeing you right here next week on The Agenda.